Hello and welcome to this edition of the Potomac Local News Podcast. I'm your host, Uriah Kiser, founder and publisher of Potomac Local News. And joining us on the podcast today are two stars from Jesus Christ Superstar, which is about to grace the stage for its opening weekend at the Riverside Center for the Performing Arts. Anthony Nuccio and Kiley Ernest joined us on the podcast today to talk about this play, this rock opera that's coming to Fredericksburg. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Be here, yes. Thank you.
All right, so I've never seen this thing, and when you don't know anything, what do? You consult ChatGPT, and ChatGPT tells you that it's a rock opera. It dates back to the early '70s, and it has a massive following. And as old as I am, I probably should have already seen this show. So Anthony, we'll start with you. Tell me who you play and what this show's all about.
Yeah. So first of all, are you into musicals in general or no?
Yeah, as I understand it, I mean, this thing's chock full of music. And it's all music from what I understand.
Oh, 100%. Yes. Yes. So like you said, rock opera. So it's entirely sung through with no dialogue in the true opera form, but with a rock score. And around the same time, things like the Who's Tommy was very similar, and also similar roots were started as an album and then became a full-fledged stage musical. Um, First, I think the West End, and then Broadway, and then different movie adaptations throughout the years as well. Because obviously, it's a very timeless story that can be told in so many different artistic ways. So I played Judas Iscariot, who, going by the Bible, is the betrayer of Jesus, was also Jesus's right-hand man. But the musical does a very, very good job of showing some of the nuance and some of the humanity in all characters involved amidst the political climate of the time, and also the fact that there is still a lot of, um, I guess, tendencies to show that like Jesus was more than a man. Like there are times where he is still prophesizing about what's going to happen. So it's still very true to the original source material, but it presents it, I think, in a very humanistic way, where you end up really seeing just a lot more of the different shades of every character, so to speak.
Kylie, tell me who you play and your first impressions of this show as it kicks off tonight, opening night on this on Thursday. What is today's date? Just for anybody watching this, today is the 13th of March, opening night, and your first impressions of the show and who you play.
Yes. So I play Mary Magdalene, my girl. Yeah, and she was really giving a lot to the disciples, a lot of her time and resources. She was very much like bought into their mission and fully in support of that. Um, And so, yeah, there's been a lot of fun playing with her and trying to play with kind of her reactions to a lot of the things that are going on in the show. I've seen productions of it where she's a little bit less present than she is in our production. She's really like in the action and watching a lot of what's happening. And so it's been really fun. Like our director will refer to us as like a trio. Like we have Jesus and Judas and Mary. So Anthony and I have been playing with like our relationship and what our relationship is to Jesus. And yeah, I think just getting to bring that to life and then it all culminating in us having a real audience and hearing reactions and stuff. It's just been so like thrilling. Like it's really one of my favorite shows. It's some of my favorite music to sing. So
So as you sing that music, and I'll put this question out to both of you. I mean, talk to me about what it's like to do a rock opera versus a traditional, musical, right? I mean, people who go to shows or they've been to a musical once or twice, I'm sure. And if they've never been to something like this, well, what for you, what's the difference in performing a musical versus a rock opera like this?
I think for a traditional musical, you really do have those periods of dialogue to, at least in terms of just stamina wise, give yourself a vocal break. And I think that's one thing that, especially even in traditional opera, is something that any good composer is always going to try to write into the parts, just so you're not constantly on stage having to sing, sing, sing. Um, if you amplify that into a pretty high energy rock singing style, It makes things more fun for sure. But I mean, like I love this is my style. Like I was always a rock singer before I even got into musicals. This is actually the first musical that got me into musicals. So it's very near and dear to my heart. So it's just a different approach, and I think just realizing that people are there as equally for you as they are for even like the bands because it has a whole aesthetic. So even when we bow at the end, we do like a pass bow, and then the second bow is to the band because they are an integral part to the actual production. So I think with that comes a lot of connotations of that, like I said, higher energy, more visceral music, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Kylie, is this a challenge for you to have to sing every inch of your performance?
Well, this is like my favorite thing. Like if I could just be in musicals where you just sing, that would be ideal for
Mm.
me. However, I think in like today's world with our attention spans and everything being a little bit shorter, we're used to like watching a TV show with something else happening in the background. There are subtitles. They're going to reiterate kind of what the conflict is in a very plain way for the audience and a lot of media that we're consuming now. And so I think even though the story of Jesus is one that a lot of people know, you can miss some of the action, the like political nuances or the things that are really going on. With how overwhelming it is to just, it's a lot of people singing, it's a lot of like intense music and stuff. So we try to be really good about our diction and our storytelling and just really try to make it very clear for the audience. But I think the best thing that music does is like convey the emotions of the scenes. So even if you're missing a little bit of what this person's name was or whatever, you're really getting into the depth of what was going on
Mhm.
with these characters emotionally. So I
Now,
love it.
Anthony, I want to ask you. I mean, this show came out 55 years ago. And at that time, there was, things have changed a lot in culture since the show that came out. And at the time, I read that there were some, traditionalists, conservatives, what do you want to call them, were not happy with the portrayal of Jesus, and they didn't, they didn't like the fact that Judas, your character, was humanized. And so, given the fact that Jesus and Judas both are humanized in this play. How does that affect your portrayal of the character going into this?
Well, I think it makes it much easier and more relatable because it's very, very easy to see these people as, I guess, just entities or just names on the page while having to project your own ideas onto them, whether they are personally influenced or culturally influenced or religiously influenced. So it kind of gives you, I think, a little more freedom in a way to inject your own spin on things based on your own life experiences and your own emotions, right? Um, yeah, and like I said, you are right. But even then, like we have one cast member who grew up very conservative, and he's like 27. Even his mom was didn't let him listen to it when he was a kid.
Interesting.
So yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, so I mean, it's not changed in some circles. I think it is always going to be. I think like I know there's some lines where Mary says like he's a man, he's just a man. Like those are like those are kind of triggers. And yeah, just the fact that Judas does lead the show off and he's not outright saying I'm going to betray Jesus. It is like a very Kylie. I was actually thinking earlier, like what our role is to each other, and it's almost like we were like the angel and devil, like on either side of Jesus, where like it's one end, you being like it's all okay, it's all good, and me being like it's not good at all. So you have these like conflicts coming in. But like I
Yeah.
said, like that is really just any kind of like family dynamic, really. And like you said before, Kylie, like just thinking of us as like a trio and having to actually go through the emotional thought processes of these characters and how they all lead has been just very, very rewarding, honestly. Because yeah, this is my first production too, where they have been seen as like, um, if not three equals, just a team almost.
Yeah.
Kylie, that you said that in some productions that you've seen, they've not used as much of Mary that is in this show. So go ahead, peel back the onion, tell us a little bit, some more surprises that we could very well see in your production here at Riverside.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think Mary, she's another one of those characters that culturally can be a little divisive. I think it can be kind of upsetting to people to see sort of what she's grappling with in this show. Um, but she really is dealing with, like, there's a human man in front of her who she really loves his ideas, the way that he views the world and the way that he treats other people. It's like completely changed her life and how she views others. um, she's just such an empathetic, compassionate being. But also in the Bible, we get glimpses of Jesus being very angry during his time on earth. He gets real worked up and he's trying to explain to the disciples before he leaves, guys, this is the way we're supposed to do it. We're not supposed to be fighting. You're not supposed to be doing this in the temple. That's not it. Like, he's trying to lay down the law a little bit, as well as he is trying to be so compassionate. So I think in our production and just in the shows in general, she's really like a calming presence for him, especially when he's having angrier moments and really trying to express things. And sometimes the disciples are all not listening and they're all getting rowdy and doing their own thing. And she's always locked in on what he's saying and the message that he's trying to preach. So, but there's also this back and forth with her because she starts developing feelings. I Don't Know How to Love Him is one of like the big, that's the song I grew up knowing from the show. And it really, a lot of people really like that song. So there is some pressure there. But yeah, she's grappling with, like, what do I do that these feelings are happening, but he's supposed to be this higher power, and she kind of has an understanding that he is leaving them, and then it becomes very clear by the end of the show that that is happening. He is dying. So complicated playing with that, but it's really fun.
Jesus Christ Superstar is on stage now through April 27th at the Riverside Center for the Performing Arts. This is a big show. This is, and if we didn't communicate it earlier, it's a rock opera, and that is going to be huge, and something that we have not seen on Riverside stage here in the past few years. I can vouch for that, but that's why I'm really looking forward to seeing this show. So guys, get your tickets, riversidedt.com, and go see this show and support local theater in our community. Anthony, Kiley, thank you both for joining us on the Potomac Local News Podcast.